everybody, and welcome to Love Fraud Live. You may have noticed that the sociopath seems to enjoy pushing your buttons or pulling your strings, anything to get a reaction. Why do they do it? I'm Donna Anderson, author of lovefraud.com and host of the True Lovefraud Stories podcast. For those of you who watched in the past, I'm glad you're here. For new viewers of the live show, welcome to Love Fraud Live. Tonight, I'll explain why sociopaths intentionally provoke you. At the end of my short presentation, I'll answer your questions. Okay, let's get started. Your sociopathic partner picks at you. You're a lousy mother and the kids hate you, he says. You're so stupid that you're lucky you don't get fired, she says. The nasty comments keep coming. You're upset, but try not to say anything until you can't contain yourself anymore and you explode. Then the sociopath smiles. Why do sociopaths intentionally provoke you? The key to understanding this behavior is knowing what sociopaths truly want in life: power and control. Everything else is secondary. And let me explain. Dr. Liane Leedom is a psychiatrist and love fraud author, and she believes that the sociopath's out-of-control drive for dominance is the motivating force behind their behavior. She explains that human beings have 4 social drives that are hardwired into our brains. 3 are related to romantic love. They are attachment, which is the drive to be with special other people; sex, which is the drive for physical pleasure and procreation; and caregiving, which is the drive to take care of the people we love. All of these drives are necessary for authentic love, and most people experience them. Sociopaths, however, experience the drives for attachment and sex, but not caregiving. They don't really care about other people. They only care for themselves. Therefore, they do not have the ability to authentically love. Now, I said there are 4 social motivations, and the last one is power. Power isn't necessarily bad. It's the power motivation that makes us want to be a leader and work towards success, acquire nice possessions, and become achievers. Most people want to pursue accomplishment, but don't want to harm others in the process. Their social drives are associated with love, which are attachment and caregiving, put the brakes on their drive for power. But sociopaths don't love. Therefore, they have nothing to slow down the power motivation, and it takes over their personalities. The only way these people achieve satisfaction is through power and control over others. So, what does the sociopathic desire for power and control mean for you? Well, it depends on the sociopath. It could be annoying, or it could be downright dangerous. Some sociopaths like being the puppet master. They want to pull your strings just to get a reaction out of you. For example, a sociopath might say he's coming to your house at 5 o'clock. You're sitting there waiting. He doesn't show up. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You're worried. You're angry. You finally go to bed. The next day, the sociopath shows up like nothing happened. You're upset. He acts like it's no big deal, which infuriates you. And then you see the smile. He caused your reaction, which is fun for him. It is proof that he has power over you. Sometimes that's all the sociopath wants, to provoke you for the sheer satisfaction of exerting power and control. But sometimes the motivation is much more nefarious. If you're married to a sociopath or have something that he or she really wants, the motivation may be to crush you so that you can no longer fight. This can happen in high conflict divorces. Sociopaths often want custody of the children. Well, it's not because they love the children. It's because they consider the kids to be their property, or they just don't want to pay child support. So the sociopath picks. Why are you asking the kids to do chores? That's your job. Your life is a mess. How can you possibly take care of the children? Or, I should take the kids away permanently. You have no business being a parent. Finally, some terrible thing that the sociopath says pushes you over the edge. You lash out and scream, and the sociopath records you. Or you leave a threatening voicemail, and the sociopath puts it into evidence. The sociopath wants to portray you as insane and out of control, and you've just proven it. You're well on your way to losing your children. So, once you figure out that you're dealing with a sociopath who intentionally provokes you, what do? Well, it depends on your circumstances. If you do not have children with this person and have not yet escaped, I recommend that you keep behaving just the way you've been behaving, even if that means that you typically scream at the sociopath. Why? Because you don't want to tip your partner off. If you change your behavior as you're planning your escape, they'll figure it out that you're thinking of pulling it away. And then they'll either pour on the charm to get you to stay, or they'll make the matters worse. But once you are away from the sociopath, you need to learn to ignore their provocations. This is especially true if you're dealing with divorce or child custody. You must be able to maintain your cool no matter what your former partner does or says. Remember, all sociopaths really want is power and control, and that's why you should not respond to their provocations. If you respond, you are actually reinforcing their behavior, which means it continues. So, don't feed the beast. Now, I know this can be really difficult because you likely have every reason in the world to be upset. So, how do you reduce your emotional distress and maintain your equilibrium? That's exactly what Dr. Leedom addresses in her Love Fraud program, which is called Skills Training for Recovery from Narcissistic Abuse, Gaslighting, and Toxic Stress. It's the only therapeutic protocol designed specifically for survivors of narcissistic abuse. Dr. Leedom is a psychiatrist who was herself targeted by a sociopath, so she teaches you skills to reduce your emotional distress and cultivate internal balance. The program even includes emergency skills to use when you're being pushed over the edge. The idea is to prevent yourself from doing something that will make your situation worse. You also learn to take steps every day to restore your health and emotional well-being. It's a truly wonderful program, and we've just simplified it and reduced the price. So I recommend that you check it out on education.lovefraud.com. So that's the presentation for tonight. If you want in-depth advice for your own situation, I do offer personal consultations. I can also help you with your emotional recovery through guided mindfulness and Reiki. If you'd like to know more, please go to lovefraud.com/talk to Donna. And there's a link in the description below this video for a lot of information about love fraud, including the skills training that I just discussed. I also want to make sure you know about the True Lovefraud Stories podcast. I interview people about their experiences with sociopaths And then I talk to experts on topics that come up in their stories. So you can listen to the podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, Apple or any of the other ones. It's also on YouTube and YouTube Music or at lovefraud.com/podcast. Next week, I'll be doing the show on Wednesday instead of Tuesday due to a family obligation. And please subscribe to Love Fraud Live. When you subscribe, you'll automatically be notified about all my new videos. Plus, by subscribing, you boost the distribution of Love Fraud Live, so you'll help to spread the word about the dangerous sociopaths who are living among us. So, let me see. I'll now answer your questions. Oh. Okay, so Jade says, that's not a sociopath, that's a psychopath. Sociopaths are socially awkward. There's a critical difference. Psychopaths are not awkward, are very charming, and don't look odd. They can manipulate others easily, just push your buttons easily, not sociopaths. Okay, well, thank you for your comments. The issue of diagnosing these people and the disorders is incredibly complicated. And a big reason why is because the mental health profession itself does not agree on how these disorders should be named and what the diagnostic criteria are. And it's pretty complicated. I use the term sociopath as an umbrella term for all the personality disorders in which people exploit and manipulate others. This is the way the term was originally meant to be used. The word sociopath was coined in 1930, and it originally meant anything deviated or pathological in social relations. Now, the word sociopath used to be in the DSM-5, or the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, but it no longer is. The term was changed to antisocial personality disorder. However, a lot of people use the word sociopath as shorthand for antisocial personality disorder. It's kind of a mess, and it confuses people, but the word sociopath no longer has any clinical meaning, so it's essentially free to be used, and I use it as an umbrella term for all the disorders. Why? Because there's a lot of overlap among the personality disorders and also among the diagnostic criteria. So, I don't think you could say, I mean, if you're using the term sociopath to mean antisocial personality disorder, I don't think you could say that the people with antisocial personality disorder, are socially awkward. That's not the case at all. In fact, you might be thinking of people who are asocial as opposed to antisocial, because antisocial people love other people, or not love them, but want to be around them because they want to use them. And so they're very aware of the fact that in order for people to be available to be used, you kind of have to make friends with them, they have to like you. And so plenty of antisocial people who would be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder have those skills, as do the psychopaths. And as far as appearance is concerned, there's only one physical trait that might indicate that you're dealing with somebody who has either antisocial personality disorder or psychopathy, and that is the eyes. Sometimes you can look at the eyes and they seem to have these black shark eyes, or there seems to be nobody home. That's the only physical characteristic that kind of has some relation to what the disorders are. But anyway, I thank you for your comments. While I'm waiting to see if anybody else wants to ask any questions, I thought I'd mention the most recent episode of True Lovefraud Stories, which is called "He Said He'll Kill Himself Because of Me." That's the title of the episode. And in this story, I talk about exactly what I described in my presentation tonight, in that the perpetrator, who was a guy who I called Jonathan in the story, that wasn't his real name, he essentially picked at his girlfriend, who became his wife, until she exploded. And then shortly after that, or from that point on, for the rest of their relationship, which luckily didn't last very long, he held it over her head that she, lost her cool and exploded. And it was something that went on through the entire involvement. So that episode, which I do encourage you to listen to, it's a pretty good episode. It's a nice show. You can hear it on any podcast platform. Again, the show is called True Lovefraud Stories. But anyway, it's a good example of exactly what I was talking about in this particular episode tonight. So let's see. Here's a question that may come to mind as you were listening to my presentation tonight. So I made the point that sociopaths do not have the ability to love. And you might ask, why don't they have the ability to love? Well, these disorders, particularly antisocial, narcissistic personality disorders, and psychopathy, are highly genetic. Most of the research that's been done has been done related to psychopathy. And what they found is that children can be born with a genetic predisposition to this personality disorder. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that they get the disorder, because there is an interaction, a nature and nurture interaction. There's an interaction between the genetics and then the environment that they grow up in. So what happens, though, is that if a child has been born with a predisposition to a genetic predisposition, it typically means that one or both of the parents are disordered. Not always, sometimes it's buried back on the family tree somewhere, but in probably most cases, either the mother or father is disordered. Well, sociopaths make terrible parents. They simply, as I said, do not have the ability to care for other people. That includes their children. And so they do not have the ability to provide a nurturing environment for their kids to grow up in. So what happens is that you get a kid with a genetic predisposition, and then you get parents who don't know how to parent properly, don't have it in them, and they can't provide the love and nurturing that a child needs. So unfortunately, that's how you end up with another sociopath. And so how might this disorder show up in at-risk children? What happens when they're very young is that the at-risk children, kids who are possibly at risk of, who have a genetic predisposition, they don't seem to want or need closeness with their mothers or other people as well. They often tend to be extremely independent and kind of want to be, on their own. So, in fact, there was one study that was done that found that infants who preferred to look at a red ball rather than their mother's face had a predisposition to grow up to be disordered. And that's kind of, it goes back that far that, these little babies were more interested in the ball than in their mother's face. So anyhow, what do you do in that situation? Well, the objective is to teach the children to want and enjoy human contact. And the best way to do that is to start when they're very young and to hold them a lot. And so that hopefully they develop a desire and a need for human contact. That's one of the ways that you can help. And then as they grow, Dr. Leedom talks about the ways that you need to parent them. And she describes the inner triangle, which means working on their moral responsibility, impulse control, and ability to love. Those are the 3 points of the triangle. So that's how you can help an at-risk child, although in some cases it's just, there's nothing you can do. I mean, some kids get such a heavy dose of genetics, it's called a genetic insult, that no matter how good the parenting is, that, you know, they're going to end up being disordered. And I've spoken with plenty of parents who have had that experience, and it's just truly heartbreaking. So, okay. Well, it looks like we don't have any further questions tonight. So, thank you everybody for joining me. And remember, next week, the Love Fraud Live show will be on Wednesday instead of Tuesday. So I hope to see you here next week at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Wednesday. Thanks a lot and good night.